Palworld's new update is almost here, and is introducing a lot of new awesome gameplay features. The one I'm most excited for, and the one I'll be basing this video on, is the PAL monitoring stand. This base structure will allow you to pick which work suitabilities your PALs will focus on. While we don't know all the information just yet, I'll share everything we do know so you can plan ahead of time, and I'll cover the best PALs you should get to take advantage of these massive changes. Without further ado, let's get into the top 10 most useful PALs in Palworld for the new update. If you know how the PAL monitoring stand works already, feel free to skip to the timestamp on screen where I start my top 10 list of PALs for the new update. For now, I'll explain how this new item works and some general effects it has on worker PALs. There are 12 work suitabilities inside of the game. I'll briefly talk about 11 of them in this video when I list off these PALs, and won't talk about farming at all. The reason for this is because farming is unchanged in regards to which PALs are the best for it. Some PALs have gotten drastically better or worse because of how easy it is to control the AI now. Not being able to control the AI on some of these PALs was a big hindrance to their capabilities inside of a base. So with this newfound control, a lot of PALs are going to be able to unlock some potential they didn't have before. To show you what I mean before getting into the list, here's an example. Anubis has multiple traits that are a great level. Two of his best suitabilities are handiwork and mining. But a problem a lot of people have with Anubis is the difficulty in getting him to focus on a specific task they need. How many times have you seen a pop-up saying there's no work to assign Anubis to when you need to craft 100 spheres? With the new update, you should be able to get your PALs to do whatever task you want them to do, and you won't have to worry about PALs not getting crucial things done. As you may imagine, this change ends up making PALs like Dig Toys almost completely worthless. This is because before these soon-to-be changes, he was used for his ability to focus specifically on one type of work. All PALs with one suitability are losing that convenience they offered base creators for this reason. This effectiveness drop-off applies to any type of base, whether it be an everyday use case or a specific auto farm for a resource like metal or coal. Now for the breakdown on how I'll be ranking the most useful PALs in the game, since it can be quite subjective. I'll be taking into account primarily the level of suitability a PAL is in a trait and the necessity of speed for that trait. I'll also consider the PAL's versatility and convenience of use. This list is made with a new update in mind, which explains why one or two of the choices might seem a bit surprising to you. The best passive traits for these PALs, unless I say otherwise, is Artisan, Serious, Work Slave, and Lucky. Remember, this is strictly for base work, so the traits I chose were for work speed only. If you want to use any of the PALs I mentioned for other aspects of the game, do not go for these traits. They will not help you fight or move around at all. At number 10, we have Bushi. Bushi is one of the few level 3 lumberers, a skill that is capped at level 3, and is a great early game kindler and transporter as well, being level 2 in these traits. Bushi is my choice for lumbering because he's smaller than the other options, which matters less in this update, but it's still important for effective pathing for transporters. He's number 10 because he's the only replaceable PAL on this list, as a PAL I'll mention later lumbers at the same level Bushi does. The easiest way to get Bushi, even though his boss fight is also pretty easy, is to breed Celerate with a Sweeper or a Nightwing. Coming in at number 9, we have Orzurk. Orzurk is the best electricity generating PAL, as he's the only level 4 in this category in the entire game. The reason I have him lower on this list than most of you might is twofold. For one, remember that this is strictly for the value he brings to your base, and not to fighting or farming water PALs. I just had to drop him because a perfect electricity generator simply isn't the top priority for a base, as lower leveled power generators can get the job done just as well. The only breeding combo in the game for this is Grizzbolt with Relaxaurus. Grizzbolt being found on Sanctuary 1, and Relaxaurus being common in areas shown on screen. If Grizzbolt isn't spawning, just fly away from the island and fly back to reset the spawns until you find one. At number 8, we have Frostallion. Frostallion is the only level 4 cooler in the game. I value cooling quality slightly more than electricity generation because generating electricity at a high level makes literally no difference once you hit a certain cutoff, while cooling at a higher level at least slightly impacts how long your food preserves for. Remember, now that PALs are more organized in what they are doing at all times, the size of said PALs isn't very relevant at all because you can just organize your base in a way that size doesn't really matter. If I could, I'd just put both of these PALs at 8.5th place. The only way to get Frostallion is to catch her in the frozen lake here on the map. I recommend using Flame and Poison Arrows to your advantage here, because they do a % damage, especially because you aren't going to get a legendary before fighting Frostallion during an optimal playthrough, so you're really not going to have much to fight it when it comes to PAL strength. Alpha Plasma is the closest you can get to a PAL that can do that, but he gets completely rolled by Frostallion anyway. I'd recommend getting a male and a female Frostallion. This can take a while because from my findings, most Frostallions are female. But you really want to have two because if you breed them together, you'll lose the alpha on it and it'll be a lot smaller for your base. Remember that the alpha that comes with it being a boss on the map makes the PAL a lot bigger. This really isn't necessary and is actually kind of counterintuitive when you're trying to make a base PAL. I know I said earlier that size doesn't matter, but having a significantly smaller one can't hurt. in Palworld. One more note for Frostallion, I don't believe you can get the lucky passive trait on her, so just go with Workaholic instead. At number 7, we have Frostallion Noct. Frostallion's nocturnal variant beats her original version by just one slot on my list. The reason I put Gathering above Cooling on my list is really simple. You generate crops faster than crops spoil in the fridge anyway, which is why I think the gathering speed is more important for your base in general. For Frost Noct, I would absolutely advise going with some speed as opposed to entirely work efficiency. Something like Artisan, Work Slave, Swift, and either Serious or Runner works pretty well as a balance between work efficiency and speed. I definitely at least replace Lucky with Swift here because of how much moving around she'll be doing for gathering all your crops. Remember, Lucky makes your pal bigger, and in some cases, that's just not worth it. The only way to get her is to breed together Helzifer with Frostallion. Helzifer spawns here on the map at night. At number 6, we have Yormantide. Yormantide is the best watering pal in the entire game, being the only level 4 waterer. You want to have at least 2 of these in your base, one for the milling crusher and one for your crops. Watering is the first skill that I think is absolutely necessary to have a fast pal for, and I consider the jump from number 7 to number 6 on this list to be a significant one. The easiest way to get a Yormantide is to breed a Nightwing with a Grizzbolt, or a Sweeper with a Beacon. You want to make sure, yet again, that you do not use alpha pals in your base, as having a roof can bug out huge pals like Yormantide really easily. In general, I wouldn't recommend a roof for this reason, but a non-alpha Yormantide is good regardless due to it taking up less space. At number 5, we have Astagon. Astagon is the best miner in the game, being level 4 in this stat. He's one of the pals that's gotten a huge bump up on these rankings due to this update's changes. This is because of Dig Toys becoming completely obsolete. Astagon can now take the spot of Dig Toys from all the farms he was previously being used in. This is the last time I'm going to emphasize this, but it's so important to remember. Size of pals will not matter nearly as much in the new update. The easiest way to get Astagon is to breed together a Cryolynx, which spawns all over the snow biome, with a Grizzbolt or a Helzifer. At number 4, we have Lylene. Lylene clocks in at 4th place because she is so versatile. She is the best planter in the game at level 4, and is tied for being one of the best medicine producers in the game at level 3. Side note, medicine production doesn't come at level 4, it's capped at 3. Medicine production isn't useful all the time, but when you need to make something like a memory wiping potion, you'll be thankful to have a Lylene that makes it 15 minutes instead of 30 plus minutes. Being a max planter is also great, because once you hit late game content, you'll need to cycle out so many crops for cakes, high quality food, and other random things. Having 2 Lylenes like you did Yormantides is probably worth it, but it's more debatable than Yormantide, so you could just make one. Having 2 will enable you to have a backup for times that you're actually making medicine, and not having to sacrifice your planting while you're doing that. The easiest way to get Lylene is to breed a Mosanda, who spawns in these areas of the map, with a Battalia, who spawns in these areas of the map. At number 3, I have Wumpo. Wumpo and Wumpo Batan are the 2 level 4 transporters in the game currently, and they're both going to be ridiculously more effective once the update comes. I'll just talk about Wumpo in this video because they're effectively the same pal, and Wumpo is a lot easier to get. Level 4 transporting is really useful due to how much it lets the pal carry at once, but Wumpo has been avoided due to his size getting in the way of other pals. Now that size of pal doesn't matter in the new update because there's just less pals running around like headless chickens in your base, the traits I recommend going for when you're using a Wumpo would be to get a Swift instead of a Lucky like I said before. Wumpo is also level 3 in the lumbering stat. Like I mentioned earlier, Bushi was not the only option for that, so if you want to use him for that as well and not bother getting a well traded out Bushi, feel free. I just want to emphasize this again. Do not put Lucky on your Wumpo. A 15% size increase to Wumpo is just ridiculous and completely going to get in your way. The easiest way to get Wumpo is just to breed Penking with Sweepa. Those are both really easy pals to get. At number 2, we have Yormantide Ignis. The next 2 pals I talk about are absolutely necessary for any playthrough. You can really get by with doing slightly slower work everywhere else in your base, but for kindling and the next suitability I discuss, speed is so important. Speaking of kindlers, Yormantide Ignis comes in at number 2 on this list because he is a level 4 kindler, the only one in the game. Kindling is simply the second most important trait in the game to be fast in, so Yormantide Ignis gets second on the list. He is so useful for this one skill that he overcomes any versatility arguments you could have made for 3rd or 4th. The best way to get Yormantide Ignis is actually pretty unique. Simply go to the volcanic portion of the map in the bottom left and fly around looking for huge dragon eggs to spawn. It is generally really easy to find these, and you can get a Yormantide Ignis as soon as you have an egg incubator with this method. Number 1, Anubis. Is anyone surprised? I can't fathom a reason you wouldn't consider this to be the best pal in the game. You start the game by crafting and never stop. Crafting times for a lot of schematics take forever to make, and you can have multiple crafters working on a given task at the same time. This is the major difference between Anubis and Yormantide Ignis in my opinion. Having 3 to 5 Anubis in your base is a pretty standard practice, due to you being able to allocate a few to mining when there isn't as much to do with crafting. The easiest way to get Anubis is to simply breed Celery and Relax Source together. If you have a really well traded out Bushi from earlier in this video, feel free to breed it with a Penking and get those traits much easier onto your Anubis, but catching a lot of Celery for good traits is pretty easy as well. Well, that's my list. If you found this video useful and are excited for the new update, please consider subscribing. This is a very new channel and I'd appreciate the support. More Palworld content will come when the update is released, which should be very soon. Join my Discord if you'd like to stay up to date with everything Palworld. It's linked in the description and in my channel's bio. This has been Jace, and I'll see you guys next time.